The story behind the Greenwich episode began far away from London. The last 2 decades of the 19th century saw a series of anarchist-inspired terrorist attacks hit countries across Europe. In November 1884, an international diplomatic conference was held at Washington, D.C. that selected Greenwich's world-famous observatory as the prime meridian of the world, the origin for all time and space measurement, the place whose time would set the beat for the whole world. Now, the reason given for selecting Greenwich was a practical one. Something like 75% of the world's ships by tonnage used charts based on the Greenwich meridian, and that was because the London chart makers were the most prolific. So selecting the Greenwich meridian was seen to inconvenience the fewest people. The only major country attending the Washington conference to abstain from the vote for Greenwich was France, and the conference opened what was to become a running sore in the psyche of the French nation. At the time, the French delegate lobbied hard for the decision to be reversed, and later France just refused to recognise the results of the conference. French commentators saw it as an act of hostile imperialism on the part of Britain, and I think it's easy to see their point, although you might well disagree. In January 1885, just a few weeks after the Washington Meridian Conference shone a spotlight on his observatory, the Astronomer Royal at Greenwich, William Christie, wrote to his government, worried about possible bomb attacks on his buildings. Just 3 weeks later, an anonymous letter was received by the authorities containing threats to blow up St. Paul's Cathedral, prompting them to close off the cathedral's clock and bell chamber, fearing a symbolic act of violence against the clock, and it remained closed for years. By late 1893, anarchist terrorists were particularly active in France, culminating in a bombing of the Chamber of Deputies in Paris that December. Then, on the evening of Monday the 12th of February 1894, an anarchist threw a bomb into the crowded café of the Grand Hotel Terminus in the Rue Saint-Lazare in Paris, next to a major railway station. 20 people were injured in the explosion, and one of them later died from his injuries. 3 days later, in England, an explosion was heard across Greenwich. The Royal Observatory gate porter and 2 of its astronomers raced out towards a path where they could see smoke rising. There they found the park keeper and 2 pupils from a local boys' school who'd been first on the scene. At first sight, there didn't appear to be much wrong. A young man, later identified as Marshal Baudin, was kneeling on the path by railings, perfectly still, with his head bowed. But then he fell forward. He was taken to a nearby hospital, where he died 25 minutes later. Marshal Baudin was a French anarchist, and he knew Émile Henry, the person who'd attacked the Grand Hotel in Paris 3 days earlier, very well. Marshal Baudin had been carrying a bomb to the Greenwich Observatory. He was only meters away from his target, with the bomb primed in his hand, when he tripped and fell forward onto it. It exploded and killed him. Just around the corner from where he was fatally injured are the gates that lead into the observatory's large courtyard. And there, beside the gates, to this day, is the large, round, white dial of the observatory's electric public clock, set in a wall at head height behind glass. It's an official clock that had displayed Britain's standardised, authoritative Greenwich Mean Time since the mid-19th century. In 1884, when the Western world's government representatives had decided that all the people of Earth should march to the beat of one clock, it was this clock. It was the powerful living embodiment of all that anarchists like Baudin despised: authority and hierarchy. This was to have been the end of Marshal Baudin's journey that day in 1894 if he hadn't tripped and bungled the plan. Marshal Baudin had been moments away from bombing Greenwich Mean Time itself. Émile Henry, the Paris bomber, said this at his trial. He said, "You have hanged us in Chicago, decapitated us in Germany, garroted us in Jerez, shot us in Barcelona, guillotined us in Montbrison and in Paris. But what you can never destroy is anarchy. Its roots are too deep, born in a poisonous society which is falling apart." Anarchism, he said, is a violent reaction against the established order. And Henri's choice of words there is telling. Established order means political institutions and structures, but it also refers to the work of measurement scientists, like the astronomers working at time-finding observatories. Their work is in establishing order. Then, as now, it was impossible to separate science from society, impossible to see the work of any institution, like an observatory, as purely scientific, rather than bound up in politics and wider culture. The Greenwich Observatory clock is an imperial clock, and clocks and empires go hand in hand.